forward just a little bit, make sure those auras are contained, and then having the big attacks to pop Herald attacks if that's what his opponent does. And it looks like we're going to get down into this match, our third match of the first leg of our top 8 here. These people trying to love the sportsmanship from these players. I have got to say this. In Flesh and Blood versus all the games that I've played in my life, the sportsmanship in this game is second to none.
Yeah.
I love seeing it from these players. Both of these guys came from super far around the world, traveling their butts off to get here, played their butts off to get here, and they are representing their countries really well. They're representing their heroes really well here in this top 8, but only one of them can make it out of this match, Armada.
Yeah, both of these players fighting for that opportunity to cut their way into the semis. And seeing how this plays out, looks like first play goes to Prism. Deciding how to play out this turn. And again, this could come down to, okay, what's my hand composition? From this point, I have to decide if I'm starting early with auras or just kidding, just coming down with the Herald of Erudition for 5. And looking over on Pablo's side, choosing to run the Carrion Husk, saying maybe they're going to go Heralds. Maybe I need that to block.
Yeah, he was saying that in his interview. He's like, I might have to lean on my Carrion Husk a lot in this matchup just to make sure I don't take too much damage from the big attacks. Now, since it is turn 1 and that hand's going to be replenished, he is going to be able to block out from here. If this was a turn or 2 later, you might even see him consider something like that Carrion Husk. I do want to point out the equipment on Villiam's side as well. We're seeing a very defensive set of equipment here. Maybe, we are seeing a Herald attack from him, but maybe going into a very defensive role and trying to fatigue this Chane in this game.
Well, there's a lot of Prism players that have come off of the Dreamweavers for the gloves and just swapped in some very simple, very easy to... Basically, it's just usable in almost every matchup, the Ironhide Gauntlets, because you can just pitch for it alongside of 2 other resources, like pitch a blue and then get the Ironhide block and then also get a Spectral Shield created. And just that simple interaction, and this is the cool thing to me about high-level Flesh and Blood, is little things like that. Valuing one card that's a blue that could be pitched to do 2 different things makes a huge difference. Blocking 2 seems very simple, but blocking 2 on an equipment that coincides with the creation of something like a Spectral Shield is a huge decision point that you can make as the Prism player on whether or not you're going to put that in over Dreamweavers.
Absolutely, very good points here. It looks like we're going back over to Pablo here. He's going to take a little bit of time here to consider his turn. And we've talked about this, these Chane decks, so difficult to play. It looks like we're going to have a Belittle, revealing a Belittle after being paid for with a Minnowism. This has got the
What a strange starting hand to look at. You're looking at Belittle, Minnowism, all in circulation in that first turn hand. It's a strange spot because, running the Belittle Minnowism package, by the way, just straight up running that where Belittle can go find Minnowism if you reveal a card to the Belittle's effect, basically is conceding more cards out of your deck. And seeing all of these this early, kind of a weird spot to be in.
Yeah, and you see here, there's 2 different flavors of Minnowism that you can go get. There is a red one, which pumps up an attack for a lot. So if you want to be pushing damage, that's the one that's going to be happening earlier. Or you see the one that Pablo is picking up here. It's a blue Minnowism, which adds 3 resources to the hand. So a lot of flexibility here with this combination as well. Something that you don't see too much in Flesh and Blood, a way to go look through your deck for a specific card.
Yes. And it's interesting, too, because Belittle, Minnowism, finding a Minnowism that's blue, none of these cards are cards that you necessarily want to Soul Shackle on. So the decision point here being, okay, are we going to, do anything else with the turn? Are we going to just throw a Soul Shackle out there to start the process? And again, if you're brand new and this is your first intro to either of these heroes, Chane can create a Soul Shackle, and then that Soul Shackle can function to give certain types of cards go again. But in this scenario, anything that's been revealed thus far doesn't actually gain go again off the Soul Shackle. And so it's going to be very strange to see if he actually plays that out, creating a Rune Chant there off the grasp of the Arknight.
Yeah, he goes and pitches that Minnowism for some resource points, creating that Rune Chant off that grasp of the Arknight. He's going to activate Chane's ability to give this go again. It looks like this is going to be a Rosetta Thorn attack, and that's for 2 and 2.
Yes, this is the only the only thing that's on the board and that he's shown that could actually receive a go again trigger. So it's as if you're going to use the go again and create a Soul Shackle, you might as well do it on the Thorn, which is coming, like you said, for 1, 2, and 2.
Yeah, really hard to block this correctly, even if you have Arcane Barrier, because you have an instance of 1, an instance of 2, and a physical instance of 2. This is another way that makes Chane really good. You see this a lot with Briar as well. Their attacks come from many different angles for many different amounts, so it really puts to the test that you put your cards blocking and defending correctly.
Yeah. Now, I'm not sure which non-attack was played there during that. I do know he pushed up a little, and he pushed he blocked earlier. So I'm not sure how accurate that ending was. Nevertheless, we do see a beautiful extended art Wartune Herald coming down for 5, and there is a yellow pitched here, and it is a Herald of Judgment, a really fun sideboard card in this exact type of matchup when you're a light hero versus a shadow hero. Herald of Judgment, a fun card that could come up later. But here pitched away so that you can use the Luminaris effect to give this Herald go again.
Pablo consulting his hands, see if he wants to do any kind of blocking here. It doesn't look like he does. It looks like he's just going to take the 5.
So he pushes the 5. That will go to the soul. There is go again involved. So there could be a follow-up here, and gripping onto 1 card in hand, 1 in arsenal, choosing to play down the haze bending for 0. And then attack, perhaps with... No, you can't attack with a haze bending because, of course, that takes up your action point. Haze bending, a really cool card in that if you can allow this aura to stick and then have other auras destroyed, spectral shields get created off of the creation there.
Yep, looks like that Soul Shackle is going to go ahead and remove, banish Minnowism.
Yes.
So we've been seeing so many of the Belittle Minnowism package already here this game. Missing on your first shackle of the game, not the end of the world. So when you start getting to the 3, 4, and 5 turns when you're trying to do really powerful things, that you want to start really hitting on these shackles.
That's
what
correct.
I mean by that is the cards are going to get banished. There are cards in Pablo's deck that if they get banished, they have this ability called Blood Debt. And while they're in the banish zone, there's ways to play the cards from your banish zone to the Chane and do things with them. And that's where Chane, they do the combat Chane, and that's where the hero Chane, let's differentiate that. And that's where the hero Chane really gets his power. Is by doing all these things everywhere from all the different sides.
Yes. Certain cards can be played onto the Chane by Chane so that Chane can play things further on the Chane.
Chane. Sorry, I'm not going to ever sing again. I'm never singing again on coverage. I apologize to everybody at home.
Pablo thinking through his turn. The banish there is fairly simple, but it's really interesting because in these early turns, you do have to decide what your opponent's trying to do because your overall game plan hugely impacts your late game as Chane. If you start just shackling up, and maybe you're missing banishes, but you're just pushing a lot of gas early, you're trying to go. If you're doing that, and then your opponent pivots and dances around a lot of that damage and then is able to start to fatigue you, then that early stuff the early decision points you made, those come back to bite you.
It looks like we're going to have another Belittle here. I feel like I've been saying this every turn so far this game. This Belittle's going to be attacking for 3. It is going to have a reveal here, so it is going to go find, I guess there's another Minnowism left in the deck. I was going to say, I feel like we were almost out of them already.
So Belittle revealing off of the Shrill of Skullform Blue, a really cool card in this deck that was added in Everfest. Shrill is sort of one of those like all-stars in the deck at times where it can reveal off this. If you create a Soul Shackle, it gets go again, and then it also gains +3, so it pushes like 5 damage. The only real downside is that you're not able to banish this and play it from banish zone. But outside of that, this really just hits a lot of checks a lot of the boxes. Pitch is blue, so you gain 3 resources off of it. It's a fantastic all-around card from the new Everfest set.
Now, this first attack does look like it's going towards Villiam. When you're Chane and you're playing against, or when you're just playing against Prism in general, and you're going to be attacking multiple times a turn, how does that usually pan out?
What, as far as pushing constant damage?
No, like pushing damage, like when do you attack the hero versus when do you attack, say, the haze bending that's in play?
I mean, you're always, because haze bending is an aura with Spectra. Spectra is a keyword wherein if it is destroyed, it's going to basically stop any go-agains, any combat chain, like continuations, unless you have a second action point. And so you're always sending your first attack to your opponent, or multiple attacks to your opponent, and then you're ending by removing 1 or more, if you can, by gathering up action points, possibly removing those auras after the fact. Unless you see something like a Genesis come down, if you see that, you do anything in your power to go up there and smack it.
It does look like we're having a judge get involved here, maybe something to do with that 2 damage off the Rosetta Thorn that we were talking about earlier in the game. We don't want to speculate too much here, but let's see if they get this sorted out. It looks like they're going to be talking through this.
Yeah, in any event, it does appear like they're talking through the Rosetta Thorn. Looking at the discard pile in that graveyard, there is only 2 attacks. I think the thought was that in that moment where you reveal the Minnowism, the thought, oh yeah, there's an unattack, and so you've met that requirement.
Easy problem. Easy mistake to make.
When you're seeing random belittles, random Minnowisms, random when it's all so early, it could get mixed up. Nevertheless, coming down with Howl from Beyond, one of my favorite cards in really in the Shadow card pool because of the crazy stuff you can do with it.
Yep, that's going to pump up the next attack. We have a Chane activation, making a Soul Shackler. It's going to give this Chill Skull form a big buff this turn. It's going to have Go again. It's going to have a buff from Howl from Beyond. It's going to have a buff of its own because it has seen an aura be created from the Chane hero this turn.
Yeah, so it's got a base power of 3, if my memory serves correct. It might even be 2, actually. It's got that base power, but then it gains the +3 from itself, +3 from the Howl from Beyond. So this is pushing a ton of damage. And, by the way, it does have Go again. Pushing the Rosetta Thorn, this does swing into the Haze Bending, removing that Haze Bending. A huge deal. Haze Bending, it's strange. If you start listing down all of the auras of, like, in order of importance to kill, it's just so... Oh, and look at this, flashing down the Merciful Retribution, so that not only are you killing the Haze Bending in that moment, but now you have another one to deal with, and you're taking a point of Arcane if you don't choose to block it. And you're creating a Spectral Shield.
Yeah, really, really good turn from Villiam here. He is going to go down to 31, taking a little bit of damage here, but this board is going to get a little clogged up, and we're going to go back over to his turn as well. This is the kind of game that he's looking to play, right?
As from the Prism perspective, you're feeling fairly comfortable if you're able to establish a Merciful Retribution at first, but you're basically, in doing that, you're passing the turn back over to your opponent, not arsenaling a card, and this is a big card. I believe Pablo drew into one of the most important cards in the Chane matchup. It looks like there's an Art of War in the hand.
Yeah, we're going to be going into Shackle 2 turn here, though, so hopefully for him he gets a couple hits off of that, because Art of War can make for some really nasty, big, wide turns.
Yeah.
One of the most important cards. That's the card you want to banish the least off of Soul Check. We talk about it all the time. That might be one of the most important cards in the entire deck.
Yeah, Art of War, a very powerful tool in Chane, specifically because of the banish draw 2 option. Most heroes that play Art of War, when they choose the banish draw 2, they're losing a card to gain 2. For Chane, he's putting a card, usually, in a place that can actually just do work, coming from the banish zone, and then gaining 2 more cards. So it's essentially a draw 3, which is very powerful. And
this
wow,
was a really, really good banish for Pablo here. It's a Ghostly Visit and a Bounding Demigod, 2 cards that he could play from his banish zone. 2 for 2 on the 2 Shackle. This was the kind of turn that he really, really needed here. William had got to push a little bit of damage here. Still got that Merciful Retribution. Still got that Spectral Shield on his side. Now Pablo's got possibly a big turn lined up.
Yeah, and you already have your opponent at 31. Usually if your opponent's trying to play control as Chane, if you're Chane and you're playing against Prism who's trying to play control, they are maintaining a very high life total. They're trying to block out. They're trying to do anything they can. But here, because they're trading blows and coming down with things like Merciful Retribution, you've managed to put some early damage together. And then if you can spike with something like Art of War, you might be able to just roll this game from this point forward. After you're going to Shackle here for 3, next turn maybe you hit 3 good things, 1 good thing, 2. Anything after this point, if you can line up some powerful stuff, you might be able to start snowballing.
There are so many Belittle Minnowisms in this deck. We have another Minnowism starting off into a Belittle, revealing a Shrill Skull form. Minnowism pitched here to find another one.
Another one.
Another one.
He finds them all the time. They're everywhere. I think he's actually burned through all Belittle Minnowisms that are red and blue, which is very strange. Like, this is not normally what you see, to have all of these come up so early. And you're also sitting with an Art of War in your hand that you could technically choose to just, like, arsenal, save up. You could even decide to try and go for some like huge alpha strike combo turn with the 2 banish that you already have.
Now, if you're doing that, are you kind of ignoring the Merciful Retribution on the other side of the board if you're going to be doing that kind of all-in turn?
Well, no, I think what you would do here is you would present this damage, maybe present the Shrill, that blue that you showed earlier, and then end with a Rosetta swing into the Merciful, and pocket the Art of War, as Flake likes to say. Put that down in the arsenal. Wait for the next set of banishes. See if you can really build up something crazy, and then just go super wide.
Does look like a Soul Shield's going to come out and block this buffed up Belittle. Looks like no damage is going to leak through here. Still have that Art of War to say, if it would have been like a perfect block, he could have maybe gotten the extra damage through here and pumped up some of his attacks later. Let's see how Pablo wants to play this turn out.
Yeah, if you decide to try and like combat trick the Art of War into play here, it doesn't actually push anything up. He's going to Soul Shackle, which breaks the Chane. Chane comes out to show that the Chane has been broken, and then there's another thing on the Chane. Pitch here, he's going to Blue Shrill. This is with Go again, and this is coming for 5. It's got base 2 plus its own ability. Floating 1 resource, of course, this is most likely representing that Rosetta Thorn is going to go and get rid of the Merciful Retribution.
Yeah, Pablo possibly setting up for a big turn next turn. He's going to take, let's see how he wants to play this out, if he wants to finish this off with Rosetta Thorn, but it does look like that 5 is going to get through. And maybe that last resource point, let's see what he's going to do. Well, he's going to actually reach for the...
Yeah, the other option here is to do exactly this. Clear a little bit of the blood debt so that you don't get too clogged up, because sometimes you do just get overrun with blood debt cards back to back to back, and in that moment you're actually playing 2 different games. 1 trying to like deal with auras, and 2 trying to get the blood debt out so you don't blow up.
Now that is going to kill the aura. Spectre is going to pop. And he's going to actually take 2 damage here, because he's going to take 1 from the aura, and then he's going to take 1 as well from blood debt at the end of turn. Any of the banish cards any of those blood debt cards that we talked about that stay in banish at the end of turn, they deal damage to you. So that's your payment for kind of putting these spells on layaway that you wanted to play later. So back over to Villiam.
And we know that arsenal is a very powerful Art of War. Waiting for that turn to see what he can do next turn. Now, but in this moment, Prism actually does have a hand, does have the ability to come out with perhaps their own aura. Could be they could flash down something very powerful like a Genesis, but more often than not, this could just be, I have a Herald, I'm just going to push like 6 or 7 damage at you, and you can decide if you're going to take that.
Pablo, I think, just making sure that he has his cards pitched the same direction. Each time I did see earlier, it looked like his deck might have gotten turned around while they were looking through and searching. When you go into your deck this many times, some things can happen. He's been using Belittle Minnowism almost every turn of this game. Yeah,
at this point, I think he's actually tapped out of Belittle Minnowisms. There may be like 1 Minnowism floating around in the deck still, something like that. But yep, it's going to come down with a Wartune Herald. It looks like that's a red, coming for 7 with Go again.
Yep, there is a yellow card in the pitch zone.
I also want to say, totally appreciate that in general, when you play someone who's playing Prism, they have all the foily, all the pretty, all the extended art cards. I was talking to a player in the Pro Tour. We were standing right outside this booth, in fact, and they were saying, I've got my Prism deck minus 5 cards, all foil, all ready to go. And it reminded me, I have 2 blue cards. You just add it to it. I just want to see everyone get all of the nice foily cards. It's just so flashy.
It looks like Pablo takes that entire amount from that Wartune Herald. So that 7's going to come in, put him down to 23. The Spectral Shield as well is going to come in, put him down to 22. These life totals are actually falling pretty fast. There's a Pierce Reality as well at the end of the turn here from Villiam Kubik.
And so,
very nice turn from the Prism player.
Yeah, it's a solid way to apply extra pressure, and it asks the question of Pablo, do you want to give me cards and make your turn slower? And the answer for him is no, because if he hits some banishes here, he loses an Art of War, Command and Conquer, but he does get a Ghostly Visit, and that's probably, depending on his hand composition, that's probably enough. Just the single Ghostly Visit to consider dropping down, and I think it will be, because there's 2 cards, maybe 3 cards in Soul, and he has a Soul Reaping. That Soul Reaping is going to be absolutely bonkers when that comes down in this exact matchup, because Soul Reaping attacks for 6. You don't actually have to pitch into it. You can just banish things and pay the resources and gain resources. Not only that, if you Art of War on top of that, and he has a Shadow of Ursa as well. He's got a Mauvrian Skies. Looks like this could be a really sick turn if he chooses to pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, let's see exactly how aggressive Pablo wants to get. You got to think he's going to want to maybe get some of these blood debt cards out. He's getting precariously close to that life total where the Carrion Husk is becoming a liability. So maybe the next big Herald attack we see that'll happen as well. But it looks like we're going to start the turn off by activating Chane's ability to make a Soul Shackle. I think Ghostly Vid is going to be added to the Combat Chane.
Yes.
Here has Go Again.
Yes, 4 with Go Again. He's pitching the Shadow Averser. By the way, that card is an absolute house, allowing you to play it, banish things, get it in your banish zone, trigger secondary effects. It also allows you just natural Go Again. It's a blue pitch. It blocks 3. Super good. And this 4, by the way, this 4 is secretly even more if that Art of War comes from Arsenal.
Yeah, exactly. Art of War is definitely a card that you need to keep on your mind for this turn, because this is maybe the time that Pablo is going to pull the trigger on that.
He's got a Mauvrian Skies. He has a Soul Reaping. The other card is the real kicker. Whatever the other card ends up being, if it's a card that you can banish, like a Blood Debt card that you can banish and gain resources off of, it could be a crazy, crazy turn, because then you can get the trigger. And it does look like, is that an Unhallowed Rites? If so, then he could come down with like Art of War, banish, draw 2 on the Unhallowed Rites, and then just go crazy.
Absolutely. I kind of just want to sit back and see what Pablo is going to do this turn. I love the way he's paced this game. Like, there's no indication that this could be a nuts turn for him. He's just taking his time, slowly pushing a little bit of damage. It looks like those Phantasmal Footsteps are going to step out and pick up a little bit of defense here. Yep.
There's the Art of War coming down. Is he going to choose banish, draw 2?
It does look like it's going to be banish.
Yep, and it was an Unhallowed Rites. Banish, draw 2, most likely also choosing +1. But the option to choose Go Again here is something you could pick.
Now, it does look like he did pick the +1 because he upped the power
Yeah.
on the Ghostly Visitor, so it's going to push through a little bit of extra damage, going to push it up to 3.
Yep. It makes sense to choose the +1 here, because you're going to be going wide, especially with that Soul Reaping. That's going to come for 7 off of the back of this Art of War. And so choosing the +1 makes a ton of sense, and you can do some very, very powerful plays.
Villiam's life total is in serious jeopardy this turn.
He's going to have to give away a lot of cards from hand, give away perhaps some equipment, blocks, anything that he can do to stave off the power of this kind of a turn. Something to look forward
to in this turn as well. We see a Mauvrian Skies. It's 22 to Pablo, 24 to Villiam. The next attack that puts the damage through will activate that Arcanite Skull Cap as well.
Yep, and this is a huge play that was available, is on the table. He gained an action point by using the Spellbound Creepers to, at instant speed, play Mauvrian Skies, which, when it resolves, gains Go Again. Now, that Mauvrian Skies will give Unhallowed Rites Go Again, but just by credit of playing the Mauve Skies at instant speed, he gained an action point. So he's actually sitting at 2 action points, plus the resolution of the Go Again off of the card he just played. So in doing all of this, he's saying, I'm not done. This is going to go on for a while.
Yeah,
Prepare yourself.
And with the extra ability from a Hallowed Rites as well, he's going to put a card from his graveyard onto the bottom of the deck that had Blood Debt, just adding that extra piece into his deck. So if the game were to go really long, it's there. I don't think this game might make it all the way there. We'll have to see. They're actually starting to gear up quite a bit here, and especially this turn, because we're seeing a 5 attack, another 5 attack, and I don't think he's anywhere near done.
This is a huge early turn to line up and present this much damage on the Soul Shackle 4 turn.
Yeah, all set up by that Soul Shackle 2 turn that hit 2 Blood Debt cards. It was 100%, and Pablo smartly got a little bit of damage that turn, but saved a little bit for later.
Yeah, what we're seeing here is the fruits of the decision to Arsenal the Art of War and not just go when you see Art of War. When you choose to Arsenal, like we talked about, and in that moment, instead he played, like we had talked about possibly doing, the blue, the 2 attack that pushed for 5, and then just removing with one of the cards from Blood Debt, removing the aura, and taking away the board, and then arsenaling the Art of War. That allows you to do exactly what we're seeing here.
Now, if you've been listening to us all weekend long, you may have heard us mention something like going tall, going wide. This is a perfect example of what we mean when we say go wide. You can see it physically represented being wide, but also just a bunch of attacks in a bunch of different ways. So you don't just have one card that you can answer. You have to answer all of this, and this is what makes Chane so powerful. Being like this with so many different angles of attack. You've got 5 power attacks, you've got 2 power attacks, you've got arcane damage coming in, so much go again. There's still cards left over in your hand.
Yep.
Your opponent doesn't even know what the full range of what you have here is.
And from Villiam's side of things, you may be looking at this like, yeah, I've taken some damage this turn, but I actually still have cards in hand, and he's presenting Rosetta. Is that the end? But no, there's still an action point that could be used if he chooses to throw something down, and instead he's just going to take the 4, and it looks like that may be the turn. And maybe arsenaling that Soul Reaping so that you can stack up. And, flashing down the Genesis right at the end of the turn. Not able to remove it at this point. That is going to be a must-kill card if you're Chane, and a must-get-value off of card if you're Villiam.
And you had to kind of see this coming maybe a little bit for Pablo. After all these attacks, Villiam was not trading cards. I just like to say there has to be something like an Arclight Sentinel, like a Genesis, something here to go at the end of the turn that's very powerful. This with Pierce Reality plus some Spectral Shields can get Villiam back in this game. This is the kind of buildup of a board where the start of the comeback comes from Prism.
Yeah, he's going to attack with the Genesis, present 1 damage. Now he could, if he has a yellow in hand, he could choose to pitch that yellow and create a Spectral Shield at instant speed, and in doing so, you'd basically give these auras go again, but instead he's just going to sit and arsenal that card. Drawing up.
Content with what he's got on the board right now. He's got a really, really good setup. He's going to go up to a 4-card hand with an arsenal. And this presents a problem for Pablo. Now Pablo has to figure out what's he going to do with his attacks. Am I going to go face? Am I going to try to start clearing these auras? And don't forget, every aura that you clear ends your turn. Wow!
I mean, when you run like that, what else do you need?
Just good, clean living.
That's right. I wonder, and I'm curious, in the arsenal for Villiam.
That's a bingo.
That is a bingo right there. That's a hit. I wonder if he drew into it like exactly Soul Shield, and it was like, this is like one card that I'm like perfectly content to have sit in the arsenal. It could also be like a blue aura, or like another yellow aura that he'd want to flash down on his opponent's turn, something like that. But there is the Soul Reaping. It's gonna gain the benefit of like all of the text. Basically, he's gonna banish 1 card. He's gonna gain a resource. This will have go again. There's nothing that the Prism player can do about it because there are multiple cards in Soul.
And you see that he actually banished a Rift Bind. So while he lost a card from his hand, not really.
No,
that card has Blood Debt. It will be back.
Incredibly playable. We'll put it that way. Incredibly playable. And this is presenting 6 damage with the go again.
Yeah, it does have go again because there is more than 1 card in his opponent's Soul. We saw a cool instance earlier in the tournament where Soul Reaping was attacking with an opponent with exactly 1 card in the Soul, and they removed it. And they're like, well, you do not have go again, sir.
That is exactly correct. When you're playing as Chane, or if you're playing as Prism, and you see Soul Reaping on the board, you always check the Soul, because if there's 1 card there, that Soul Reaping is not safe for go again, because the player playing Prism can always, at instant speed, make it into a Spectral, and no more cards in Soul. And it was a Parable of Humility. So this is a fine flash down, because what this is doing is basically nerfing all of those attacks by 1.
Yeah, this is really, really good against those go wide turns from Chane. It also just presents another threat that's in play that, which one of these auras do you start attacking now? Because now there's 3. This can actually be quite a problem. And then when you're attacking them, your turn is over.
Yeah, but keep in mind, your opponent is at 6. If you're Pablo, maybe you can just get there over the top of a Parable of Humility, debuffing all of your attacks, right?
And this is where it's very, very difficult. I found myself in these situations before where your opponent's at such a low precarious life total, right? But they have this board that they've built up. They have 3 auras, all of which are good. They have resources floating. They've got cards in, and don't forget, they've still got a bunch of equipment. So while he's at 6, he's more at a virtual, 2, 4. He's been at 10 to 11 to 12 here with some of the equipment that can block as well. Not to mention, there could be Spectral Shields at some point in time.
Yep.
So while it looks like 6, this is more like functioning like between a 10 to 14 life total.
And there's always tricks, too. There's always things over the next few turns, things like Arclight Sentinel that you have to consider as well. And so it is an incredible game of inches, of which decision points you decide to go down, which decision tree you decide to go down.
Now, it does look like Shadow Verser is going to come out of the Banish Center and attack that Parable of Humility.
And that's just going to do it.
When you go again.
Yeah, when you pop an aura, you are going to pop that down.
We're going to get our action point back at instant speed here, the Spellbound Creepers.
using said action point.
By playing Marvin Skies, the go again is going to resolve. You're going to get your action point back.
Using that to flash down another attack in the form of the Rift Bind. And this does get buffed up. Because Rift Bind is played from Banished, it's looking at that Mavrian Skies and seeing that one non-attack is played. It's getting that nice little +1. This is getting go again from the Mavrian Skies as well, so this is not the end of the turn. Choosing to use that bind counter, upping that bind counter number. Now, this is another one of those decisions that you really have to make or not make. At some point, you're going to have to use your Spellbound Creepers to gain action points and to push extra damage. But when you choose to do that is a huge, huge thing in general in playing Chane. Because if you lose those boots too early, if you don't deal arcane damage to your opponent and you lose those boots early, you sometimes just stumble at the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to keep your footing when you don't have your boots on anymore.
That's exactly right. I mean, and look at those boots. Those things are huge.
Some of my favorite art.
They're really, really cool.
The Runeblade equipment, the Shadow equipment is just, let's be real, all of it's great.
Yeah. If you've ever studied the art of Carrion Husk, it is brutal and beautiful.
So there we go. We got a double block from some of the equipment that's going to soak up the 4 here. Now we finally have Chane activation this turn. Going to give that Soul Shackle. We're going up to 5. The next attack is going to have Gogan. I love the way that Pablo has played these games. You can tell that he is very proficient with his Chane deck, sequencing everything, being very methodical as he goes through his turn. Now here's that Rosetta Thorn. Here's some of that arcane damage that you were talking about.
Yeah, he's got to push 2 arcane damage to meet the amount of bind counters on Spellbound Creepers. And if he can pull that off, then those survive another turn. But the moment he doesn't is the moment that those Spellbound Creepers are done.
Now here's a cool thing that you don't see super often, but you will in this kind of matchup. Since Chane's ability was used, what that did is that broke the combat chain. Now Arcanite Skullcap had already blocked this turn,
yes,
but since the combat chain was broken,
it returns to its zone.
And then it gets to come back out and block. Now that blocked the physical damage from Rosetta Thorn. It does look like with the last gasp of the turn, Rift Bond's going to come out and kill his Genesis. I think this turn was a huge win for Pablo. I don't know if you could ask for more without killing your opponent.
Yeah, that is that sets you up very nicely. But coming down here, let's see what Villiam is able to answer with. He does have what looks like a 2-card hand, and choosing what to do with those resources, perhaps?
Yeah, maybe this is still the end of Pablo's turn. He hasn't actually drawn yet. Maybe there might be another instant speed.
Could be that he chooses to do something at instant speed, yeah. But looks like he's drawing up.
Yeah, we haven't cleaned up the pitch zone just yet, so let's see where we're at here. I think Villiam's just taking a moment maybe to think about it. He's like, yeah, hold on one second, we're not there just yet. All right.
And look at the life totals here. We're down 4 life, 20 life, and this is sort of. And it's strange how separate those are, but it's also neck and neck as far as how this actually feels. Because if at any point Villiam is able to just stuff a big attack or deal with a turn, he could try to turn the corner on this match.
What does that look like, Villiam? What kind of turn are you looking to have here to kind of get yourself back in this? Because it's looking kind of bleak.
At this point, I think you're trying to establish some attack, but then you're also looking to draw. He's just going to push the 1 here, looking to maybe draw into like a Genesis or an Arclight Sentinel at a certain time. The other option here, maybe throwing down that Herald of Erudition, could be considered as well.
Yeah, it looks like the Herald of Erudition, though, it's probably one of the only yellows he's got, so he's going to use that to go ahead and make a Spectral Shield. That's going to give go again to his attacks this turn.
Allows him to come in for another 1 after that. And Pablo getting closer and closer to the Carrion Husk being irrelevant and starting the timer for his own life to tick away.
Yeah, Carrion Husk, a great way to block these giant angels that are going to come out of Villiam's deck, but I don't know if there's ever going to be another one of those this game. We'll have to see. It might just be death by 1,000 cuts for the last couple. Another Pierce Reality.
Yep. Establishing a board of auras. 2 Pierce Realities. Now, again, if you can actually throw down a Herald, you're going to get a lot of buffs on that Herald with those Pierce Realities, but you may just be stuck. Now, let's see what these banishes come up like, because they've been absolute fire to this point.
All right, we're 1 for 3 so far.
Missing again.
Well, that's a big miss there, but a Shadow Averser coming in at the end. This This is still pretty good. We've got that Howl from Beyond from earlier. We've got the Ghostly Visit, and we've got a Shadow Averser on layaway here.
That plus I believe he has a full grip of cards, means he could string together another very large turn, and that's the kind of thing that you want to do. And again, you mentioned this earlier, the functional life total that he was working with, the Prism player was working with, because of that equipment, is now kind of bleeding away.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw a lot of the equipment just gone now. So this is more like a true 4 here. We got the Spectral Shields to kind of add up, but we're down into single digits now. While they're at 6, while they're at 7, we weren't actually in single digits yet, but now we're in that zone.
Yeah, and this could be a moment where we see, the Shadow Averser push for 2, go again, banishing the Bounding Demagon. Maybe, and that's a fantastic little answer in the moment, but it does leave you with what, like a 1-card hand?
Yeah,
maybe a
like
2-card hand.
Looks like 1 card left over for Villiam. That is a Parable of Humility hitting the board. Beautiful cold foil from Villiam's deck here. But what this is going to do is attack action cards controlled by the opposing hero of -1 power while attacking and defending.
Yeah.
So this is pretty good here because Chane goes pretty wide. It looks like it's going to go wide again this turn like it did last turn, and this is going to, there you go. We're down to 1 on this attack. A lot more manageable.
It certainly is. And you're looking to play a non-attack so that you can maybe get the Bounding Demagon out, but a fantastic one to play would be the one that's in banished already in Howl from Beyond. But that's a great one too, the Shadow Puppetry plus the Bounding Demagon. Now, it would represent more damage than this. I believe it would be, let's see, it would be 5, but because the Parable of Humility is bringing that down by 1, it's still only pushing the breakpoint of 4.
Yeah, this does give Bounding Demagon go again as well. So this is attacking for 4 with go again. Very, very important here because these are lethal attacks. This is 4 damage being pointed at Villiam's hero.
That's what we call casual lethal.
Casual lethal. I call it check.
There you go. Check and checkmate. I thought do you love chess? Don't you love chess?
I do not like chess.
You're a big fan of chess?
But it looks like this is going to be a block for 4 from Villiams. This is going to block out this damage. Looks like a Herald from hand, plus the Phantasmal Footsteps.
I think he's wide open, right? He doesn't have a card in hand as well. So at this point, Pablo may just ask the question, can I just deal 4 damage?
Am I allowed? Is that something I can do?
Is that a doable thing?
So it looks like Chane is going to go active. The combat chain is going to be cleaned up. We have made a Soul Shackle. The next attack has go again. I've got to believe that Pablo can see the end in sight here. He's got to have enough from this point with multiple other attacks. This looks like Rosetta Thorn for 2 and 2.
There's a go again Rosetta Thorn pushing the 2 and 2. He's able to throw the footsteps back in there. I guess there was a resource floating. And there's the 4 damage from Ghostly Visit to close out the game. And Chane just putting on an absolute masterclass of removing the board and pushing extra damage, waiting for the right time to play big power cards to line up just very long string attacks.